Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me in the studio is the man that makes all the magic happen. Without him, we would not have this podcast. Dan the Man, helping us out. Engineer Dan the Man, welcome to the show. Glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm here too. So I'm glad you guys are here. Welcome to the show today.
Appreciate you being here. So today we're going to talk about addiction as the biggest monster a person could have in their life. And I want to kind of do this as an honor for anyone out there who's really still struggling with this beast, because it is just, I was thinking of an analogy to compare it to from popular culture, and all I could think of was the Terminator. It just doesn't stop. They poured freaking hot whatever that stuff was, molten whatever on him, and he just reconstructs and come out of it. And that's addiction. It just never lets go. It keeps coming back, keeps coming back, keeps coming back. And I wanted to kind of talk about this today because, well, first off, if you're just joining us, this is a podcast on all things recovery, and even if you don't think you have an addiction in your life, you might want to look twice, because we live in a culture right now that is the most addicted culture on earth, and we've never had this many ways to distract ourselves and escape from life in the history of mankind. I was listening to another podcaster just recently talk about this idea 150 years ago that you could go to a store and just gather your groceries in a bag and pay with a piece of plastic and walk out the door, compared to having to go out and hunt elk like our friends did up in the Colorado mountains a couple of weeks ago. That would be uncanny. They wouldn't understand what you're talking about. And that's the world we live in. We accept it as normal, right? We've adopted the cell phone. We've adopted this crap food supply we have in America, but it is effed up with a capital F, and it's making all of us sick. And if you wonder why people are acting the way they're acting, look at the environment. We are all products of our environment, and it's just sped up too much stimulation, too much information, too much everything, and we're being overwhelmed because our brains were never designed. Another podcaster was saying, I don't think the human brain was designed to know what's going on in the lives of 8 to 9 billion more other people at any second. And you can do that today. I can get on social media and find out what's going on with this dude in Thailand. It's just crazy. So addictions are coping skills. Addictions are survival mechanisms. Addictions are ways we find to deal with our pain and to deal with our unmet needs. And I emphasize the unmet needs part with my patients. I went to a great training on Zoom with this guy named Dr. Sean, and Dr. Sean was from the Bahamas, and he had an excellent Bahamian accent, whatever it is, and he said that unmet needs, and he really emphasized how people are trying to fulfill a lacking part of their life through making themselves feel better and altered through other means. So for instance, if your job is not fulfilling you, you will seek drinking beer at night, watching football, gambling. I had a patient recently for that. It's horrible disease. Cell phone, social media. You'll live a virtual life instead of living your real life because you're not happy with your relationship. So maybe all your likes are trying to fulfill your human need for love, and you have a genuine, authentic, and I want to validate that you should be able to have this as a human being, a need for love. But we're getting it met through all these artificial means, and it's a different kind of dopamine. We're already learning that through the neuroscience, that when you go to McDonald's and eat and get dopamine from that, it's not the same dopamine as if you went out and dug some potatoes out of your own field and cooked them yourself at home. There is a process of creativity and a process of being involved in that that just brings a bigger payoff. So we're almost losing touch with what it feels like to be joyous. And I heard someone else talking about that the other day, that they didn't really understand what the word joy meant. And it really is this state of contentment where, they were saying, I've always thought of joy as like associated with Christmas, joy, Christmas. And I was like, no, it's really this state of everything's all right with the world. And I believe that's what most people are looking for when they're practicing their addictions. And I use the word addictions with an S because one of the things we're encouraged to do as therapists, but also I was somehow taught this in my early recovery, is to go to other 12-step meetings and just see what they're like. And I don't know how many people in our groups have actually done that. Go to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. Go to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting. Don't bring anybody home. Go to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting and just to see what the flavor is. And you'll learn that even though addiction has many different faces and the approaches to heal it might vary, as you know, for instance, with alcoholics and drug addicts, we have to practice abstinence. There's nothing else that works for us if you have what I have. I played a speaker in our group this morning, and he was talking about the match was lit. And once the match is lit, it's over for me. And that's what kind of alcoholic addict I am. We're going to talk about that today. But like in Overeaters Anonymous, they were saying, well, if you went home with a full big chocolate cake from Kroger's or whatever grocery store you go to, and you only had one piece and threw the rest out, that was a major victory in their program, right? Where we might say in our program that was a slip. So even though they vary, the monster underneath is still the same. And the monster is this thing that really hijacks, overtakes, and commands your brain, as Dan and I say often, like the guy that's got the video game controller saying, now we're going to make them go this direction, now we're going to make them jump, now we're going to make them go after this. That's literally what we're learning about the brain and how the instincts get hijacked. These are instincts, by the way, that are natural and organic, the way they're meant to work. For instance, a human animal, like any living animal, if it's hurt or wounded, will try to make itself feel better because we're not supposed to feel pain. Pain can lead to worse consequences. So the human brain has learned, pay attention to pain because maybe I have a wound that needs tending. If I don't tend that wound, I could lose my arm. Same thing with if I'm in emotional pain. The brain's saying, you need to look at this. You need to do something different. You need to take some action. And usually, with the system we have, our actions are so readily at hand, I can just Uber some food at home and think that I'm fulfilling the message, but I'm really just fixing the momentary satisfaction. The problem's still there. If it's telling me I'm depressed about my job, if it's telling me I'm really not happy in my marriage, the problem's still there, but you have temporary relief because I went to the local cannabis shop and have a marijuana medical card and got my dope. And so we're fooling the brain, and the brain's still going to send the message. And in our experience, in our program, we call it higher power, call it the universe, call it karma. It'll turn that flame up hotter and hotter with more consequences and worse things happening, worse states of feeling, till eventually it'll get you to move and do something. Problem is, as human beings, we're not easy to move. we're very hard-headed, ego-driven. I'm right, they're wrong. I'll figure it out myself. I've lost a couple of patients, common. They just drop out of group recently, who I said I think their problem was they had too much therapy. And they told me so. They said, well, I've been to this therapist, this, and I know what my problems are, and I know what this and that. I said, yeah, but you're still suffering. What's wrong? You're still not happy. What's wrong? So you can have all that self-knowledge, and we'll talk about that too. Doesn't do you a lick of good. Addiction, let's center in on this beast then and talk about it. There's one thing that our founder, I call Bill Wilson the founder of the recovery movement. And obviously Dr. Bob was his partner, but the book and the steps came from him. And let me back up and just say, I don't know if Bill could have been stable enough with his depression and his mania and his egomania to get this stuff done without Bob's help, because Bob kept him leveled. They were like a yin and yang, where Bob was like, keep it simple, and Bill was like, we should do this, and Bob's like, settle down, sir. And so I think we needed both of them. However, he created this movement where he addressed that we need a set of tools for people to be able to address this beast that makes you powerless, that brings you to a state of demoralization that you just don't know what to do but pull your hair out. And how he went about doing that, which was genius in this mighty blue book we call the Big Book of AA, he said, what about the real alcoholic? And so that's really the focus of today's talk for anybody out there that's really fighting a hard battle with this thing called addiction. If you have it for real, you can't fool yourself. It's in your face every minute of every day. Now, here's the problem. Addiction can exist on a spectrum. I've actually had to learn that as a therapist, because when I was first in the field, I was like, everybody's an alcoholic and everybody's got to go to AA. And that's not a good way to approach therapy. But again, limited toolkit because I was just starting in the field. But the more I've practiced and learned and experienced, it really is addiction's on a spectrum of, okay, you might be here and maybe you could stay here and have some unmanageability with some consequences, but it doesn't run out of control. But we can't predict, nor can anybody give you any certainty that you won't be this guy that's living out of a garbage can one day. See, because we've seen that. And it's really odd when you hear as many stories as I've heard over the years at how this thing can ramp up out of nowhere. I'll hear stories like, Dan and I joke, and it's true, a common age for people to start using chemicals is 13 or 14. 14 tends to be the one I hear the most. However, I get a lot of people that didn't start till they were 60 when they retired, or they didn't start till they were 40, or they had a divorce, or COVID got them and they were 55. But they had been drinking a little bit up to then. They were testing the waters, had a few problems, nothing major, maybe one DUI, but they got out of it, good lawyer. But they didn't really have what we have. And so Bill cuts to the chase on it and says, all right, well, we got this social drinker. Clearly, he's having no problems. He doesn't need to go to any meetings or get any help unless he wants to better his life in some other way. We got the moderate drinker, and he says those guys can have some problems too, but usually they get out of it and it doesn't really impact their life. And then we have the heavy drinker, and he says the heavy drinker or user, if you use drugs, is the guy that looks just like an addict or an alcoholic, but there's something missing. Don't know quite what it is. So then he goes on and says, but what about the real alcoholic? This is the guy that's puzzling you. This is the guy that nobody seemed to can figure out, is that no matter what he goes through, he doesn't put it down for good. And that's my measure. I'm not in any way believing that you have to live in the gutter. You have to go to the healing place here in Louisville, Kentucky, which is our end of the road for addicts and alcoholics besides the homeless shelters. It is a homeless shelter. But you can't leave it alone. Can't leave it alone no matter what. And Bill has this great formula where he diagnoses addicts and alcoholics by two simple phrases, and I've never seen any other test that was more accurate. Like there's these things called the Minnesota multiphasic survey and all these other things that can give you multiple questions to say, do you drink in the morning? Have you ever drank at work? Blah, blah, blah. But this just says purely, okay, if, when you honestly want to. Now, that's a big key because you have to get to that. Do you have a desire to stop? There is a line in the big book where Bill says, we are assuming you want to stop. So if anybody's out there listening and you're suffering, but you don't want to stop, that's okay. Be where you're at. I'm not here to try and push you anything, nor would that work. We're not good at, we don't like being pushed into anything. But that's the first assumption, is that you want to stop. Say, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. And that's a tricky phrase, man, because we're hearing so many celebrities. We just had a celebrity breakout on a streaming channel recently, doesn't need to be mentioned, telling their horror stories. And then we hear about other celebrities that are like, yeah, but I still smoke a little weed on the side, or I still do this. Well, then you haven't put it down entirely, sir. So in my mind, the beast still has a home in your head, like a bed bug. It's still there. You can't, kind of get rid of bed bugs, by the way. Anybody's ever had them, they'll come back. You might be down to one or two, but those mothers, they graduate birth rate fast. So the first part, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, which means put it down, never think about it again, leave it alone. Never thinking about it again. That'd be a hard part, right? Or if when you're using, you have little control over how much you take. Now that can vary. Many full-blown alcoholics who are out of their minds with this disease have nights where they can only have one or two. If they have to really hold it together because grandma's there, or keep it tight because their boss is watching, they can pull it off sometimes. But then that's why Bill gets to that, well, what about the real alcoholic? The real alcoholic is losing all control everywhere he goes. And he's baffled by it, and he doesn't understand what's happening to him. And this is true in any addiction, whether a guy is spending up his entire 401k at Caesar's Palace for gambling, or whether somebody is eating themselves into the grave and they need to be on My 500-Pound Life, or whatever the show is now, 400-Pound Life, 300-Pound Life on TV, or they're a hoarder and they can't even move around their own house. They've got so much garbage and shit everywhere. Now, clearly, you walk in there and everybody else goes, what the fuck? How are you living like this? And the guy's like, well, it's bad, but it's not that bad. This guy in this tape this morning, this speaker tape, the guy in AA goes, you know what? You called me and sounds like you need help right now. There's actually a meeting that's starting right across the street from you in 15 minutes. And the speaker said, yeah, what do you think I should do? Because literally they have a blind spot. They cannot see what they're doing. And that's the corruption of the brain. That's the brain being hijacked, that they can't see the true from the false. And it's a very scary state to be in. Everybody else knows you're crazy, but you don't think you're crazy. And we've all seen examples of that, either whether it's celebrities or anybody else that's getting into real trouble. And you're like, why don't they just stop, man? Why don't they just quit? They just can't. Something has changed in their chemistry. So I bring all that up because Bill Wilson went through this amazing journey. And, I think it's brilliant that he starts with his story in this book, because many addicts or alcoholics might not read this whole thing. They might go, oh, hell no, once they mention God, right? And that's okay. We're not really talking about God. Please understand that out there. So let me just explain that to anybody out there. It's got that hang up. We have got to find a connection to something. I as an addict alcoholic, I have to find a connection to something that is deep and meaningful enough to me, as much as alcohol and drugs was deep and meaningful to me. You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I knew I was getting my stuff, and that was going to get me through the night. I had that connection with that. And if I'm going to give up that, I've got to find something equally sufficient substitute. Now, how do you do that? Well, you go through the steps. As you go through the steps, you will have experiences that will begin to bring you a personal relationship with something that you can lean on. And we have found, us old-timers, that the more you lean on it over years, it becomes more real, more palpable, more reliable, and works miracles in your life, for all I can tell you. I was talking to the group today, addicts and alcoholics will come into my group and they're complaining about all the problems in their life. And I'm like, well, according to our program, it's because you've been living by self, all on your own power. And your power is limited, so of course your life's going to suck. But when you have a higher power, I just told them, I said, God's paying my bills. God's got a roof over my head. God's got food in my refrigerator. And everybody hears God, they think the old religious God. Believe me, when it comes to me, it ain't that. I get asked that question a lot about, do you go to church? And I'm like, my church is meetings where I'm going to hear real talk from real people. I don't need all that gobbledygook. I need something that I get something out of that means something to me. And that's what you need if you're going to give up your drug. So Bill went through this journey for all of us in this first chapter, and which is his story. And it's always astounding to me how far he went down the escalator before he was able to hear a doctor say, I don't think you're a dick. I think you're sick. And I need all of my fellow sufferers out there to hear that if you're in a dark place today and you can't stop. You're not a dick. You're sick. And it's not your goddamn fault. But it is your damn responsibility to take advantage of the tools that we have today, because they do work and we can save your life. But you have to decide that you'll let us. You have to let us in. That's the hardest part of early recovery, is taking one brick down out of your wall at a time. Not the whole wall. Just one brick down, like, okay, I'll listen. Okay, fuck you. Okay, I'll let a sponsor. Okay, fuck you. That's the way you're going to be. I was too. But if you can do that, if you got the desperation of a dying man, it'll help you take that wall down. So Bill talks about, the big crisis in 1929 when the stock market crashes and everybody's going to hell and jumping out of buildings. But he's like, you know what? I'll just hit the road and I'll find a way to make money and it'll all work out. Don't worry about it. He actually went to the bar and started drinking instead of killing himself. I love that first reference here. So should I kill myself? Nope. Let's go to the bar and see what happens. And he got that old spirit back. I will conquer this. I'll come through this no matter what. And you get to the next page, and here's where it changed for him. I believe this is the moment where Bill's disease took hold and changed him from a heavy drinker to a real alcoholic. It says, liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Meaning I ain't going through the day without thinking I'm going to get something. So he went on that way for a while. Everything got worse. He lost all this shit, got kicked out of their house, went to go live with his wife's parents. What a horrible situation. And he says, I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink, and here's where he made his mistake. This is the first mistake he makes of all the classic mistakes that every single person that has this disease goes through. I'm telling you, it's uncanny how we all go through the same routine. And again, when I say disease, I mean, I don't care if you're eating, gambling, whatever you're trying to do to get it under control, you're going to go through these stages. This had to be stopped. I was through forever. So according to the history, what Bill did is he broke out the family Bible, which is a sacred document passed through generations that nobody should fuck with, and he wrote in the Bible. Don't write in the holy book. That's the family's book. No, you don't do that. But he wrote this big vow to Lois, his wife, and got on his knees and said, I'm never going to do it again. I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise. I'm through forever. And then, what was it, 2 weeks later, shortly afterward, well, I think it was, whatever, I came home drunk. There'd been no fight. Where had been my high resolve. That was his first taste of willpower is not going to work. And yet how many people in our culture will tell you you're weak-willed, or you just need to pull your shit together, or maybe if you had a job you wouldn't be doing this, all that other crap we hear that kills us. So, and also at this point he's going, was I crazy? I took that drink without even thinking. How could I not be on guard? What the fuck? So then he comes out and he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go to this sanitarium. They weren't really called treatment centers back in the day. And he met this doctor, Dr. Silkworth, and Dr. Silkworth explained all this shit to him. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. Yes, you're right. You know what? Self-knowledge. That's it, man. I now understand myself. And that's what I warned you all about my patients who have too much therapy. They really believe that them understanding their issues is going to make them stop doing their issues. And it doesn't help at all. Because powerless. That's the first step. You've got to get your head around this concept. You don't have the power. You're fooling yourself. So he goes out and he's at the bars. He's not drinking, but he's laughing at everybody else. Ah, look at you. You got a drink. I don't got a drink. I'm good, man. I got self-knowledge. I got this thing licked. And he gets drunk again. And it just baffles him. He's like, what the fuck? Starts thinking about killing himself. Should I kill myself? No, not now. So he's going down the escalator all the way, right? So then he gets so afraid of death that he actually thinks fear is going to sober him up. And that happens to a lot of people when they get a sentence at the courts. You're facing several years, or you're going to really lose your job for real, or maybe your wife is really going to take your kids away, or she's taking them away and threatening to take away custody. There are moments that are like fearful that people begin to believe, well, that will make me stop. Because who would use with the threat of losing your kids? Who would use if you're going to die? But then they use again, and they're baffled again. What is this thing? And I'm telling you, it's called addiction. It is the most powerful force on earth next to Mother Nature as far as I've seen it. I've seen the most insane, baffling, irrational, illogical, shake your head, scratch your skull, go, what the fuck experiences in my group time and time again. And they still don't get it. Most times in my group, they come in, they're desperate, they're beat up, they're begging for help, and then they get in my group and they just sit there and stare at the Zoom screen. Yeah, look at me. This is what I look at all day long. And I'm like, okay, who's next? We got to check in, everybody. Who's next? And they just sit there. I'm like, I thought you wanted help. But literally, out to lunch. Now, part of that is brain damage. These chemicals do damage your brain. But most of it is just that self-deluded state that you're not going to tell me anything I don't already know about myself. That's my attitude when I went into treatment. I don't trust you all. So why would I tell you anything? And y'all don't really care. You're fucking doctors. You're here for a paycheck. I mean, I had all those going on in my head, and that's just a few of many others. And I don't know what your bottom has to be to get you to stop, but I'm going to beg you, don't go there. Today, it is not necessary to go all the way to the lowest rung on the ladder to hell. It is not at all necessary. I'm a perfect example of that. I had enough experiences. The only ones I did not have are heroin, going to jail, and being homeless. And those, I was facing homelessness at my last decision to either finally do this for real or just die. And I had many thoughts of killing myself. I tried to kill myself 3 times for sure, maybe 4. I've lost track. But I know for a fact, particularly in one instance, I should have died. But I'm still here. So in a very short time, young age, I had all those fun experiences some people have over decades. But I didn't have to go all the way to the bottom and lose everything. And that's because people were able to reach me. I went to 2 treatment centers, I went to a halfway house, I went to several meetings, and so that when I finally hit my end rope, I knew where I needed to go to get help. And sometimes that's all I can hope for in my group, is that maybe I can plant that seed and say, well, they heard me say AA enough, so maybe they'll go. Because they a lot of times won't go. In our old treatment groups, we used to mandate they got to go to 3 meetings a week and sign papers. It's a waste of time. They just forge the papers. And I don't want to put the idea in someone's head that the thing that could save their life one day when they really need it, they were forced to do it, so I'm not going to go because that place was punishing. That place was a punishment. And that's what they do. They assume it with punishment, or they think it's a joke. You're making me go to those fucking meetings. I don't want them to think that way about their salvation. It may be the only thing they have one day. So, what is the solution? What we're talking about here is remapping, reframing, reshaping, and reprogramming your brain. That is exactly what we're talking about. And the good news, it's possible, because we know that the human brain is always changing. Every time you start a new habit or new behavior, you are remapping, rewiring your neural circuits. And that's the way the brain works. It loves to learn. It loves novelty. It loves new things. It loves to do all that. But we can't get past the self-will of the person saying, well, I have social anxiety. I wouldn't be comfortable going to that meeting. Or I don't trust people, so I can't get a sponsor. They literally will talk themselves out of it before they even try it. But we have a baked-in system that can change your brain. And it's free. Would you like to know what it is? I have it right here in my hands to give to you. It worked for me, and it works for a lot of people. 90 meetings in 90 days. Can you just commit that 1 hour a day out of my whole freaking day? I'm going to go sit there, drink a little coffee or whatever you like to drink, and just listen. It is not that big a freaking deal. Hell, you'll spend an hour on TikTok or on YouTube. You can't just go sit in a meeting and listen to a bunch of drunks tell their funny stories or sad stories. Because at the end of the day, that's all AA or NA or GA, OA, SA. There's so many 12-step fellowships, guys. All they're about is one fellow sufferer saying, hey, man, I got your back, and I know where you've been. And that guy goes, really? Yeah, man. Let me tell you some of the things I did. And that guy's like, what? You did that? Well, I kind of did this. Yeah, man, I know that's what we do. See, we're part of a we. We're together. Unity. Without unity, we have nothing. And that's all the program is. Steps aside, traditions aside. It's one drunk giving a damn about another drunk. And I always tell my group members, how many times were you out running the streets and you saw one of our fellows pass out, fade out, fall out in the middle of the street? You going to let them lay out there and die, get run over? Or did you run out there and pull them to the curb? That is one drug addict looking out for another drug addict. That's what recovery is. Period. In my book. And we don't ever turn our back on that responsibility. I am constantly and forever grateful that I get an opportunity to serve in that capacity, that I can help somebody save their life. I can help somebody get back to the light. And I was the guy living in the darkness one time. Deep darkness, sir. But if you will commit to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, I can guarantee you're going to rewire your brain, because we do know that change for the brain takes at least 90 days, somewhere around there, 90, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, and your brain will adopt that as a new habit. So if you want to go to the gym for 90 days in a row, you will find it's a lot easier to go to the gym after 90 days commitment. But, we're undisciplined, and, we're lazy, and, we got to watch Full House on TV or whatever the hell you're watching. And we all these excuses, man. This guy on the tape this morning, I can't keep referring to it, but the guy was just amazingly honest. He said that here I am dying. My place looks like a horror show. I smell. I look like death warmed over, and my brother's like saying, I think you maybe got a drinking issue, man. And for whatever reason, he says it was a spiritual experience. He said yes, he agreed. And he says, and I've heard that from other people. I know that, but for some reason I went along. And his friends, and then he says to his brother, but you're right. I think you're right. I should probably go to AA. And his brother goes, AA? You're not going to AA. You're going to the hospital, dude. We're trying to save your life here. And the first thing he said was, I'm too busy to go to the hospital, man. I got too many things to do. And that's what I always hear from my patients if I try to present to them. If you'll commit to 1 hour a day for 90 days, save your life. Oh, man, you understand. My daughter's got a volleyball game. No, dude, you understand. I cut grass for all these people. So, I can't do that. Oh, I got... That's a lot. An hour a day? Really? You want me to go every day? And they won't even do it. And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. They'll pay all these doctors. They'll pay to come to our hospital, pay your insurance company, but they won't go. So for anybody that's out there, take it on your own. Get the AA recovery app of any kind from your app store, which will show you any meeting near your house. All you got to do is put in your zip code. And that's true of other programs, I assume, too. So look up Overeaters Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous. They probably have something similar.
Or just Google it.
Yeah, or just Google, I was going to say.
Google that AA Narcotics Anonymous in your city. Zip code, something to attach it to you, and it will pop up.
And most often their meeting schedules are online, except maybe Sex Addicts Anonymous. I think that's more private. But if you do call, just know it's going to be a fellow person with the same issue, and they volunteered to be there to help people, so they're going to go out of their way to help you. I mean, most of the times what I hear from people when they go work at the phones at our AA Central office, they'll say that it's boring. You just sit there most of the time, read your books and hang out, and they're excited to get a call. So they'll be very friendly, and they'll be very helpful to you. But all you got to do is go check it out. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? You don't like it, you walk out the door. It's not like we hold people hostage. And everybody's like, well, I don't want to draw a scene of myself by walking out the door. I'm like, dude, pretend you're going to the bathroom. Nobody's going to look twice at you. You can lean over to the guy next to you and say, I'm going to hit the John, and then just leave. I don't know why we put ourselves through all this rigmarole when it's that simple. But again, if you're going to reprogram your brain, don't kid yourself that it's not going to take some effort. It's going to take some major effort. You got to fucking work at this shit. It's not just magic sprinkle dust on you and you're going to change your addiction. No, don't work like that. The other thing I would say, too, is I want you to think about in terms of if it's true, just go with me on this. If it is true that something else is controlling me, do I even like being controlled by something else? Does that threaten my independence, my sense of self? Does that offend me to think that something else is controlling me? Now, when I say controlling me, I want you to be gut level honest with yourself, because I have had this experience more times than I can count. And there were periods in my sobriety where I've gone to other addictions and I've experienced a powerlessness that scared me, just to be real here. But when I was using alcohol and drugs, I started stealing from my family. And that is something I would never have ever considered doing. And I always laugh at people in my group when they say, well, I saw this guy at a concert last week and he did this horrible thing. I mean, I would never do anything like that. And I just shake my head and go, you got to be careful about that never word, dude. As soon as you say that, it's more than likely you're going to be that guy. So I could have said that. I would never steal from my family. Why would I? They've given me everything. I would never do that. But I found myself being light finger Louie, especially with my mom's credit card. But the one day that sticks out the most as being just the most demoralizing in many, many ways, although I've experienced so many of these. Dumpster divers out there, anybody throwing their shit out and then going out at midnight to get it back out of the dumpster? A big old apartment dumpster. I've done that shit. Craziness. Luckily, nobody saw me doing the dumpster dive, but no, it's nasty too. I can't believe how many experiences I actually went through in such a short time. That way, it was like an advanced course in addiction. So I was walking through the dining room. My family's home, and nobody was home for a second. They had learned not to leave me alone, but for whatever reason, they made a mistake that day, and I was alone in the house. And I walked past this cabinet, and my brain goes, silver. And I kept walking, and I stopped. I said, what? Silver. Huh? You can pawn that shit. Oh, fuck, silver, that's right. What is it? And I looked in the cabinet. It was my mom's championship horse show trophies from when she was a little girl at the state fair. These are very dear to her heart, sentimental items. And all I saw was monetary value that I could get a quick buck, get some dope. And so I scoop them all up. I get in the car. We're all going down to the pawn shop. And the whole time there, I am beating the hell out of myself. You know, we say, how many times did you do something, but you still heard that little voice inside saying, this probably ain't a good idea. I'm not being none too smart, as the big book says. But my voice was beating the fuck out of me. It was going, you're a dick, dude. You're a fucking asshole. Who the fuck steals their mom's shit? You turn around the car around right now. You fucking take that back before they get home. And I'm literally going down the road. I can see myself on Taylorsville Road. I'm going down the road, not stopping. I literally could not turn the wheel. And if you've not experienced that, I bless you. But if you have, look at it. Feel what that feels like to have something control you on that level. Don't kid yourself that maybe today you got a little more control over your addiction. You are a boy whistling in the dark. At one time, this bitch had you that much under its spell. Don't think it ain't going to do it again. That's a one certainty I can give you besides death and taxes. Is addiction will, pardon the French, fuck you in the ass one more time. I can guarantee you that. Stop lying to yourself. But I was sitting there going, turn the wheel, turn the wheel. I can't fucking move. That was horrible, dude. I went down and they fucking raped me. They always did. They saw me coming a mile away, dumb white kid from the East End. Oh, we'll get some money off this mother. We'll give him pennies on the dollar. And I would take whatever. I just wanted to get the fuck out of there and get my stuff. And, but then, so horrible. I'm back at home. I'm up getting smoked up. And I hear, Chris! I hear this screaming voice. And every time I heard that, I knew I was busted. I knew I'd done something they found out. And I was like, oh, crap, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I would have to search the Rolodex in my mind as to what infraction they had found out. And they had just seen the cabinet was empty, and then it was like, I don't know why I thought, well, we don't use the living room or the dining room that often, at least till Christmas. And every time I took something down there, I always pawned it. I took it on loan. I didn't get rid of it. I always had in my head, I'm going to get it back, and I never once got one thing back from the pawn shop. And that's delusion that we just keep fooling. Yeah, this is going to be different this time. I'm going to get that back. And once they found out, they yanked my little butt in the car high. They didn't care what state I was in. And they walked my ass down to that pawn shop. They walked me in there. My stepfather had me strong-armed in the door. And I was like, I felt like a little boy, like a 4-year-old little boy being dragged to the principal's office by the nuns. Like, because I grew up in Catholic elementary school. And, it was mortifying. And they're yelling at them saying, we're going to get a lawyer and we're going to pay the money, but you give us our shit back, and he's not allowed to ever do business in here again, and we're going to press charges and this and that. And I was just sitting there going, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I'm saying that sincerely to all my brothers and sisters out there. What the fuck is wrong with me? For those of you out there that might have diabetes and you're looking at losing your leg, but you just ate a ton of sugar, and you're going, what the fuck is wrong with me? For those of you who just can't pay your bills, stay in your house because you've been gambling all your money away, and you just took out a shark loan for 7 days knowing if you don't pay it back, they're going to break your legs, and you're going, what the fuck is wrong with me? For those of you that can't stop having affairs, and the last one gave you AIDS, and you may have given it to your wife, and you don't know how to tell her, and you're saying, what the fuck is wrong with me? Or you're just up on Netflix or video games or your cell phone all night, and you're waking up after 2 hours sleep going, what the fuck is wrong with me? That is addiction. It is not your friend. It comes in like a friend, and it turns that knife in your back, and it just steals everything you got in the night while you sleep. And it breaks children's hearts. It destroys relationships and marriages. It kills your health. and eventually puts you in a grave and makes it look to the world like you did it on purpose. You chose to do that to yourself. And I've heard many people say that ignorant statement. Well, they chose to live that way. They chose to drink themselves to death. So I'm going to beg you, you got to go to the experts. Who are the experts? Not the doctors, although, yes, you should ideally have professional help. It's just good. It'll balance out your understanding. You're not going to be able to go to a meeting and get a brains education on why your brain's fucked up, but I will give you that in my group. That's ideal, is to be in group and start your recovery, but the experts are at the program. These are the guys who have beat it. They're on the other side saying, that motherfucker hasn't touched me for 20 years. That bastard has not been in my life for 41 years for me. It's not been in the door. And I don't have something in the cabinet that I'm hiding for later. I don't have something in the closet I'm not telling my friends about. It's not part of my life ever. Over. One day at a time. As long as I work my tools. And mostly what I'm working is my mind. All addiction centers in your thinking. And my freaking crazy ass alcoholic mind, man, that's going to just, this is the way I heard somebody put it, and I thought it was so brilliant. He said, Bill in the big book talks about bondage of self. Now, if you have addiction, you know what the bondage of self is. I've got to figure out how I can get out of work early, or at least not have them make me work longer hours tonight, because I got to get out here and get to the bakery and get my food, or I can get to the store or the gambling house, play on my bets before football starts tonight, or I got to get to the store and get my liquor, right? And that pressure, that bondage of self that you're so caught up in, me. I got to get shit, fuck. And then the boss comes to ask you to work an extra half hour, and you're like, and you have to put that shit down so you don't get fired. And that bondage is deep, but it doesn't leave you because you stop drinking. The bondage of self and recovery, which you had when you were using, but the other addiction overwhelmed it at times because it's so dramatic. The bondage of self and recovery is that little voice in your head. You wake up and it goes, the world's going to go to hell, right? And the Russians are probably going to hit our electrical grid today, so you won't have power, and then there's probably going to be civil war over it because people can't get gas and food, and then there's going to be no job, and you won't have health insurance, and you're on medications that only your health insurance pays for, and we can't afford on your own, so you're just basically fucked. And that's before I get up to pee in the morning. If I'm honest and I'm listening to the shit my brain is feeding me on a daily basis, now I'm overemphasized and a little over-dramatizing, but I'm telling you, it's this low buzz feed you can barely hear of negative fucking shit. And if you don't have tools that you're treating that with on a daily basis, and you're not squarely in the boat, and you're not using, because if you're using, fuck you, you're done. That irritable, restless discontent has a stronger hold on your brain. And I've watched people getting sick right before my eyes with that little bit of, these motherfuckers, just fuck them. That's all I say. And it's just like, dude, it's here. It's not them. It's you. And that's why we use, because I got to shut that thing up. So let's sum up by saying you're not alone. You're looking at one major fucked up dude. I was going to say more, but I don't want you two to ban me. And I'm fairly normal, focused. Everybody thinks good opinions of me today. And I help others, and I'm contribute to society, and I pay my bills, and I pay my taxes, and I do what I'm supposed to do, even though I might feel like a little 5-year-old at sometimes if I have to walk in the fucking government office and do anything, or deal with authority and all that other crap that comes from adult children and family stuff. I'm, by all purposes, healed. And that's what the founders called it. They called it recovered, not recovering. They said, we have recovered. We have found a solution. And I want that for everybody in this world. That is my mission. This is why Dan and I did this podcast, completely out of our heart, guys. We're not here making money. We're not here selling you a product. Hey, gee, buy this thing. Like, subscribe. We just did this as a gift to the world. And we know that if nobody sees it, it's at least there. It's on YouTube for posterity. So somebody will stumble across it someday, maybe 20 years from now as you're watching this. And you'll be like, this really helps me in my early recovery. Thank you. Because I didn't have any of this in 1984. I didn't have no cell phone. I had to go to a payphone to call my sponsor. I had no phone in my apartment. I couldn't afford it. I had to go to the payphone and check with my sponsor. No car, no nothing. I had nothing in my early recovery. But again, I want to just wrap it up by saying you're not alone. I understand. We all understand. Go to the places where these people understand, and they will accept you no matter how dirty, scummy, smelly, nasty, foul-mouthed, mean, critical, judgmental, no matter how you are. We say, we love you. Keep coming back. That's the way my teachers taught me, and that's what I'll die on in this program. I am always available to the new guy if he's willing to reach his hand out. I am not going to carry you. That's not my job. So, Dan, any thoughts on addiction and what a beast and a monster it is? I know you've seen a lot of people die and suffer from this. And one thing you always tell about in your story is how they warned you how many people you'd see die as you stayed sober. And now Dan says they weren't lying.
Yeah, what I say is, my little saying is, and it happened after the fact, is that I really didn't have it. I wasn't really even in touch with death. I was pretty insulated from it. Grandma here, that kind of stuff, man, come to recovery. And it really is, honestly, there's swings in this. But for the most part, I know somebody a few degrees away from me every single week. You know, some Facebook friend or some other kind of thing, you know, some friend of a friend or somebody I actually know sometimes. It's actually somebody I know.
Or at least, if not dying, going to prison or jail.
Yeah, or having something. But, I mean, I'm talking about deaths. Fucking death. Dead. You know, I see it all the time. I mean, especially being on Facebook, I will see somebody a few degrees away from me post somebody about somebody young is now dead. Now, is it always clear and plain that it's this? But we kind of get no's for that, and according to how they are, and especially if you know them, and then people's comments, you kind of read into them. Yeah, we know what happened to him. I like how you just started off, not started, but how you touched on the fact that just go sit there, and just don't worry about saying something. Don't worry about liking it, disliking it. Don't just go in there and hang out for a little bit. Most of the time that's, and it's got to be the one time ain't going to work. It usually takes a little bit, but you'll fold into that, and I always like the little thing about, frankly, in every 12-step room in this world, there is a group full of friends just waiting to be your friend. And where most of us end up with by the time we're walking to AA meeting, we don't have no friends anymore. And the ones that we do have are not good for us. And, there's this whole nest just waiting for you to walk in. I'll also, something else that that kind of pinged me when you were talking, and I agree, that it is hard. It is not freaking easy to get sober. It's not. It's going to take some work. You're going to have to put in some effort. You're going to have to do it on purpose. It's just not going to happen to you accidentally. But what I can promise you, though, is that when you get down the road a little bit, it ain't going to seem like it was as hard as you felt it was at the time. It's not that. You will change your mind on that when you get down the road and you get some time under your belt and start working these principles. You'll look back and go, that wasn't that bad, And
the antidote is you don't have to do it alone. I mean, we are right here to shoulder your burden after the meeting. If you're jetting out right after the meeting, then you're missing that part where you could bitch about how hard it is. And the guy next to you will go like, yeah, it is, man. We got you. Don't worry about it. You can get through this. It's going to get better. But if you just left the meeting, you might not hear that.
You don't hear that, yep. That's part of this, my whole thing about participating in your recovery. You're going to have to do it on purpose. You just can't, the saying is this, you don't get this by osmosis, just by kind of hanging around. But that's where you got to start. It's by coming in and hanging around at first. Just be there. If you have to go that first meeting and jet out.
Right.
Come back next time. Maybe you'll meet somebody, and maybe it'll be just enough that you'll stand around and talk for a minute after the meeting.
And here's the thing: even if as long as you're functional and not going to disrupt the meeting, have a drink in the car to get yourself in the door, and then sit in the back. Nobody's going to bother you. They're going to be like, "That's cool," and then drink when you leave. hopefully don't drive. But the only thing I always have to warn my patients, the only thing where you may get asked to speak is if they say, is there anybody new? And they don't want you to give a speech. So don't feel like you have to get up and say something. Just say, my name's Joe, I'm an alcoholic, or I think I might be an alcoholic. And that's it.
Or I'm Joe and I'm just visiting.
Yeah, just introduce yourself. That's all. That's all that happens at a meeting with the first if you're new.
It's okay to qualify with anything or not at all. And it is okay.
Yeah.
To just come in there and say, hey, my name is Dan.
We're not going to bag you.
You.
We're not going to bag you and sign you up.
Yeah.
Shave your head.
What kind of dope are you on, dude? Around here we say we're alcoholics, son.
Yeah. And when Dan said you got to go to different meetings, but also the same meeting on different days, because every meeting has an off day.
Yep.
Our meeting we think is the greatest, but sometimes our meeting is just okay.
Yeah, you go to different meetings and you go to the same meetings too, because I've caught myself, and this is something I saw myself doing at one point in my recovery, was making sure I didn't get to know anybody anywhere by going to, like, almost never going to the same meeting twice. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, looking back, and I don't know that that's exactly true, but I believe that's what was going on. I was making sure that I wasn't going to get involved with anybody or get to know anybody, and I hid it under
He's the mystery
the
man.
variety of meetings I was going to, because I had a meeting book and I was highlighting them off as I hit them, and that's not so bad in itself either, right? That's
different flavor.
If you're in early recovery, it takes what it takes, and if you got it under your belt to go to every meeting in that book, that's not going to hurt you.
See, Dan was playing his own private game of Where's Waldo. It was Where's Dan tonight?
Yeah.
What meeting is he at?
Yeah. I mean, we're goofy. I'm still goofy.
But you know what? You used your goofiness, but you still got in the door. And that's what we want to do. My mission, if I've ever felt a mission in the program, and I feel like everything I've said or walked hopefully validates this mission, is to make the door wider for more people to get in.
Yeah.
That's my only goal, because when I came in, believe me, AA's changed a lot. If you even haven't been to AA in 10 years, you might be surprised how much it's changed. We're evolving to, for instance, I heard an old timer the other day talk about, people don't understand about the not talking about drug shit is no longer a deal in AA, according to the council, according to the guys at the central office that sets in New York that sets all the boundaries. They came to a conclusion that if you're just sharing your story, you're allowed to tell your story, but we don't claim that we help people with drugs or anything, but you're just sharing your experience, strength, and hope. So if you ever go to a meeting and some old timer is beating you up because you talked about drugs, you got to be careful, because if it's a closed meeting, traditionally closed meetings are for alcoholics only. So you're kind of asking for trouble. But most meetings are open, meaning anybody can come in. But that's actually been approved by AA. You don't have to apologize anymore when you're telling your story, saying that there's drugs as part of my story. I just choose not to emphasize that, and I'm certainly not going to describe how you'll load up a freebase pipe or something like that. I just, that would be stupid. That's not the solution. So, but yeah, it's changing, and check out different meetings till you find your fit. Because Dan's right. There's a group out there that's just waiting, and you're going to be like, where have you guys been? You're my people. You'll feel it the minute you walk in the door. And they will open their arms up to you. I promise they will. It's always amazing to me, this idea that throughout our whole world, no matter how bad things are, and I want to talk about this in the next podcast, but what the hell, there's these little pockets of light, and we're all sitting around the fire in a circle. And, we're keeping the lights on for the new guy. And I don't care how the world's going to hell. I mean, everything's going to shit out there. But there's these guys in here holding hope and holding the tools and a better life and recovery. And that always struck me from when I worked with the soldiers, and they were out on the FOB one day, and they're walking through Iraq in the middle of debris. There's no buildings left standing, and there's a sign on a building that had a circle with a triangle. He said, holy shit, AA Clubhouse here in Iraq. Yeah, we're everywhere. So we would like to help you, but you're going to be the biggest obstacle in the way. Just because of pride and ego and embarrassment and all that are nonsense. Like when people apologize for relapsing and stuff, what are you apologizing for, man? We're all the same. We all do the same stuff. And I heard one guy trying to explain that to his sponsee one time, and his sponsee was like, yeah, but you got 15 years. He goes, no, dude, I got today. I'm still just like you. I'm still fucked up squirrely. I'm better. I'm not going to drink today, I don't think. Not like you. But you get better, but, don't put me on a pedestal, think I'm any different. So, any other thoughts about that stuff, Dave? Addiction or anything we talked about?
I will say that, I've been doing this thing for 14 years, and I have seen a lot of change in that amount of time. My first meeting was March of 2011, and I've seen a whole lot of change, and freely admit that I have done it a long ways from perfect, but I've done a lot of things right too, and my life has been pretty damn good over those years, and on an upward trajectory for the entire piece of it.
Well, thank God perfection is not required.
No doubt. No doubt.
And thank God too how potent these tools are. You can actually use them half-assed. You can use them a little bit, and you'll still get great results. That's how potent these tools are.
Yep.
Astoundingly enough. And I think also COVID changed a lot when we allowed Zoom for meetings and stuff. That was a big step forward, really. Mm-hmm. And that's another option you might consider out there. There are 24-hour Zoom meetings where literally if you're 4 o'clock in the morning blind drunk, you're welcome to come in and listen. Don't interrupt and be an asshole. But you're welcome to come in, and you're going to hear people in different countries who are up early, maybe in England or something, whatever time zone they're in.
I mean, our Louisville area app has a whole lot of local Zoom meeting onlys on it. Mm-hmm. They're in there, and the passwords. And I'm sure your city, no matter where you're at out there, you Google that stuff, you can find the same too if you want something with just a little more local flavor. But you can also have that worldly flavor in them also.
That's something I never even considered about going to a Zoom meeting in France or something like that. Just looking it up. But being asked to speak at some of the Zoom meetings we've spoke at, California and New York and places like that, it's always great to go to a different group, get a different flavor, because they do it all differently all over the country and all over the world. Every group, every place will have its own little customs and traditions. Somebody was talking about on his talk the other day that they sing the promises.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, and they kept going on and on. I'm like, all right, I get it. Because they just kept adding shit to it. But anyway, well, look, guys, we do this out of our heart because we want to help you. We want to be able to offer you some support, some solace, some love, some understanding. If you've got addiction in your life, you're living alone. You're hiding. You're in darkness. You feel like you can't trust anybody. You're afraid you're going to be found out. You're embarrassed. And it's unnecessary. If you take anything from me, take that. It is just totally unnecessary. Addiction is the number one plague of our times. And anybody that is judging you harshly, it's kind of a note and a key that they themselves have a problem. Because I will tell you what I've experienced as a therapist over many, many years, is that when my patients tell a healthy person that they're trying to get sober, a healthy person applauds them and says, "Good for you, man. That's really admirable. Wow, that's, many people don't do that, go to treatments. That's amazing." And you know what somebody's got a problem does? Pfft, why are you going there? You don't need that shit. You just need to pull yourself together. You're not an alcoholic. No, don't do that to yourself above all, okay? Just be on your own side and give yourself a chance, because there is a solution out there to help you. So come back every week and see what we got. We got a great catalog too. If you've not checked it out, check out some of our older episodes. And if you ever want to reach us, you can reach us at our email, iam12, the word recovery, @gmail.com. That's iam12, recovery, @gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up the way we do with every podcast. We'd like to do the Serenity Prayer. So, Dan, if you'd like to join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you die if you don't. We love you. Take care of yourself. Come back, see us. Peace out.